Hey, it is You Had to Ask, the show where I answer your questions, and this week my first question comes from Rebecca Beard, who says, considering there is a massive argument brewing in the house, I'd love to know how to avoid them, especially with people with whom perhaps facts and evidence are way less important than how they feel about things. Or perhaps there is a way to cure my crippling fear of confrontation. If you want to avoid having an argument with someone, but you don't want to just avoid talking to this person, or perhaps you can't just avoid talking to them, it's not an option because you live in the same house, you see each other all the time, it can really help if you are able to turn the argument into a conversation. And I have found from personal experience that the best way to do this is to simply be inquisitive of the argumentative person. If the other person is always trying to argue with you, is starting fights with you, is challenging you, a way to turn that into something less confrontational and more conversational is to just ask them questions. And not ask them in an interrogatory way. Don't ask them as though you are demanding evidence, or you're demanding information, or you're trying to catch them. You're trying to get them to say something that you can use. Ask them from a place of genuine curiosity. If a person is arguing with you, and you don't want to argue with them, but you want to talk to them about whatever they want to argue about, just say, well, tell me why you feel this way. Tell me what makes you think what you think. Tell me, if you think that I'm wrong and you're right, then tell me why you think you're right. And again, not in an accusatory way, not in an argumentative way, from a place of curiosity. Why do you feel this way? How long have you felt this way? Did you ever think anything differently? Did you always feel this way about this topic? Or was there something that changed your mind? What was it that changed your mind? Tell me about that. I think that can really take the edge off. And that can really help you to keep things from getting confrontational and getting angry and getting bitter and getting adversarial beyond what is healthy. There's nothing wrong with having a conversation about something that you disagree on. And there are ways to do that without it turning into a shouting match and without it turning into a you versus them argument. Umar Sories. Hey Steve, as usual, excellent video. I might have asked this before, but I've been working on my own videos and a topic came across another channel that I've begun scripting. It's coming, just have a lot on my plate. Anyway, I wanted to ask you about your feelings about progressives responding to obvious anti-progressives. I'm not talking about when people disagree on an issue or a point of view. I'm talking about when there is an obviously horrible person like MRAs and Gamergate, and some progressives feel the need to do hangouts or debates with them. I noticed over time that you might do a video about the subject, but you never debate nor respond directly to these people. How do you feel about other progressives doing this, even when it seems, in my opinion, futile? Keep up the great work in 2016. Well, thank you for your kind words, Umar. I really appreciate that. Yeah, you're right. I generally avoid those sorts of direct responses to the MRA types, the MRA apologists, the ones who say they're not MRAs. They swear that they're not men's rights activists, and yet they sound exactly like men's rights activists whenever they opine on feminism or gender inequality or whatever. Or the Gamergaters, or the apologists for harassment, or the deniers of harassment, or whatever. All those types of people, I consider them basically to be trolls. Whether they are trolls in comment sections or whether they are trolls with their own YouTube channels with hundreds of thousands of subscribers, either way, they exist to stir up conflict, to arouse controversy from which they can benefit. They need targets, they need to start fights, they need to start arguments, they need to stir up interest in their audience, because that's just what they do. They need someone to fight, they need someone to be an opponent, they need someone to attack. And if you indulge them, if you interact with them, if you respond to them, if you take their bait, in other words, you're just giving them what they want. So I deny them what they want. I deny them the attention that they so desperately need, and I deny them the product that they're trying to create, which is a conflict between me and them. As you say in your question, Umar, I believe in doing videos on general subjects. I think that's a good way to do it. I don't believe in doing person-to-person responses. I don't believe in doing response videos to someone else's video or some other individual in their view. I think that is indicative of YouTube drama. I think that's petty. I think that's small. And it's just not what I'm interested in doing, and I don't think it's productive. Now, if other people want to do it, that's up to them. There are people on YouTube who I greatly respect, who I agree with, 99% of the time, who I think are intelligent, reasonable, articulate, wonderful people, who have seen fit to participate in hangouts or quote-unquote debates with the type of people that you mentioned in your question. And if that's what they want to do, if they can find a reason to do that, a legitimate reason to do that, if they think there is some benefit to that, then I don't hold that against them. It's up to them. It's their decision. I don't like it when people presume to tell me how to run my channel, and I would certainly not presume to tell someone else how to run theirs. So that's up to them. But for me personally, I see no reason to do it, and I see lots and lots of what I consider excellent reasons not to do it. Trans physics. Were there many things that you really had to grieve when you left religion and became an atheist? When I deconverted, I definitely had to go through a grieving phase for the relationship with Jesus I had lost. And it was difficult for me to wander the atheist web because this wasn't something that others seemed to discuss. The attitude seemed to be largely scornful of anyone who had an emotional tie to their religious beliefs. I guess I'm wondering if my experience is common or uncommon. I would venture to guess that it's fairly common. Unfortunately, I do think there is a tendency within the atheist community, among some, not among everybody, of course, to be insensitive to that sort of thing, to be insensitive to the fact that even though someone may be an atheist now, they have an emotional connection to their religion, to their former religion, for whatever reason. I think there is a lack of respect for that and a lack of understanding for that. And that can cause trouble for people. That can make people feel like they're misunderstood or they're unwelcome or they're being condescended to or looked down on. And that's too bad. That's not something that I think we want. For me personally, I never really felt like I had a personal relationship with Jesus when I was a Christian or when I was trying to be a Christian, when I was professing to be a Christian. But what I missed was the idea of the afterlife. That was what kept me clinging by my fingernails to some semblance of belief in God as long as I was. After I had decided that Christianity was not true, after I had decided that organized religion in general just held no pull for me anymore, just was not attractive, it was the idea of an afterlife. It was the idea of there being something after death to keep me going, that my existence would not end. That was a very tantalizing possibility, of a very attractive belief, and that was something that I was very reluctant to let go. And if I mourned anything about becoming an atheist, about coming out and identifying as an atheist and leaving the last vestiges of my religious belief behind, it was the loss of that comfort of the afterlife. Chad Wizik. Mr. Steve, my wife and I are dual military, and we've been talking about the opening of combat roles to women. We both have the opinion that if all standards can be met, then there should be no problem with any gender filling a combat role. My wife has been deployed twice. Why do you think there is some opposition to this change in policy, and what is your opinion on the policy itself? I agree with you. I think if women are able to perform the tasks that are needed to be performed for that role, then they should be allowed to do it. I don't think that gender in and of itself should ever be a reason for a particular job being closed off to anyone. And I'm completely in favor of opening combat roles for women in the military. I think it's long overdue, and I think it's a sign of progress, and I'm very happy to see that happening. Why is there opposition to it? I think it's just old-fashioned thinking. I think it's just old-fashioned, traditional views of women and gender roles, and women are better suited for this type of work, but not that kind of work. And this is a man's job, and okay, this is more of a woman's job. I think it's just that. It's sexism, if you want the short answer. The reason why there's resistance to it is sexism. Ali like me. Dear Steve, I love how objective you are when it comes to answering some of the harder questions from this series, and rarely find myself disagreeing with you. Are there ever answers that you give because intellectually and philosophically it's the right answer, knowing that in practice you have or do feel or act differently? An example is me always saying that being an angry atheist gets you nowhere, when in practice, some of the shit I read and see online from religious folk makes me furious, and with enough whiskey in me, I'll have a shouting match with almost anyone about how crappy religion is. Thanks for your time and keep up the great work. P.S. I'm really trying hard to stop being angry and drink less whiskey. Well, good for you, Ali like me. That's important. Self-improvement is very important. I don't think I've ever given the proper answer to a question without also giving what I would really do if I were in that situation, or what I have done if I was in that situation. I've given conflicting answers like that. I've given answers where I have said, now this is what I think is the right thing to do, but this is what I think I would probably do if I were in that situation. But if it's that kind of a scenario, I always try to give both answers. I try to share my conflict if I have a conflicted answer, because I think that's important. I think it's important to be honest enough, if you're going to answer questions like those, to share with the people you're talking to, whether it's in person or you guys through a YouTube audience, to be able to tell people that there is a difference between what I think should be done and what I think would be done if I were in that situation. I think it's important to be frank about that. And I try to be. I try not to give the quote-unquote correct answer if I know that I feel sort of conflicted about it personally. Ahoy year no. So with all this misogyny and atheism being battered around, sure there are a few channels that are horribly sexist, and some of them are old. I think this matters. But how do you think the overall atheist movement measures up to Christianity as a whole? I would like to think that in general the atheist community is better in terms of its gender attitudes, in terms of its attitudes toward equality and marginalized people in general. I would like to think that. And I think in many ways we are better. I think in many ways we do more to address the inequalities in our community than some Christian communities do. But in other ways, I'm not so sure. You know, I listened to a podcast a couple weeks ago. It was an episode of Ryan Bell's podcast, and he is the Year Without God guy, the former Christian who became an atheist when he lived a year as though there were no God. And he is a really sharp guy and someone that I really like and really respect. And he did a podcast a few weeks ago where the guest was someone else who I really like and really respect, Sincere Kirabo. And they talked a little bit about social justice in the atheist community. And one of the things that Ryan said was he was surprised when he left his Christian community, his church community, and sort of became more active in the secular community, how much more resistance he found to social justice type activism in the secular community, as opposed to his church community, where in his church community he had done that kind of work quite a bit and had found a lot of support and a lot of enthusiasm for social justice type activism within his church community, and he didn't find as much, at least at first, when he entered the secular community. So I think we have to be aware of that. I think we are better in some ways, but there are other ways in which I don't think we have any room to brag. Bryce Mack, what do you think about safe spaces? I am fully in support of safe spaces. I have no serious qualms about safe spaces whatsoever. I do find that safe spaces are among the most misunderstood and mischaracterized concepts in present-day social justice circles. A lot of people who are against safe spaces do not fairly represent what they are. There's a lot of people who sort of demean the idea of a safe space, who belittle it and belittle people who feel that they are in need of a safe space. Because they say they want to deny reality, or they want to break from reality, you know. They're like ostriches who want to stick their heads in the ground, or they just want to close their eyes and put their hands over their ears and just live their life that way. That's not what a safe space is. A safe space is intended as a temporary break for a marginalized person, for an abused person, for someone who has a lot of pressure or a lot of anxiety or faces a lot of oppression or hardship in their everyday life, a safe space is a place where they can go to just have a break, where they can be with like-minded people or with people who have had similar experiences to theirs, and they can just take some time to just relax and to just be free from whatever it is that is bothering them or tormenting them in everyday life. It is a temporary thing. It is not intended as a permanent solution to anything. It is intended as just a sanctuary. And a safe space can be for anybody. It's not just for women. It's not just for trans people. It's not just for any particular group. If members of any particular group or from any particular background or experience want to come together and make a safe space for themselves, I don't see the problem with that. I don't see why they shouldn't be allowed to do that. And for the life of me, I don't understand why people who feel that they don't need safe spaces would begrudge others who feel that they do. I have never particularly felt that I have needed a safe space, but if someone else does, how does that harm me at all? And what reason would I have for objecting to it or for trying to make that person feel bad? It just makes no sense to me at all. I have no problem whatsoever with safe spaces. Jonathan Coit. Steve, last week you had a question about YouTube atheists and misogyny. Do you think this misogyny is driven entirely by their audience viewing, commenting, liking their anti-feminist videos, so they're just feeding that audience? Or do you believe that their views are genuine? Do they continue to make video after video attacking feminism because they honestly feel they have more to say on the topic? Thanks. I think it's a little bit of both, actually. I would never suggest that the people who make misogynist videos, anti-feminist videos, videos attacking and mischaracterizing feminism and feminists don't really feel that way. I think they're being honest. I think those videos are a very honest and accurate depiction of their feelings and of their appalling lack of knowledge and of their bias and of their prejudice. I think that's all completely genuine. I do think, however, that the reason they continue to return to the topic over and over and over again, even when it becomes obvious that they have nothing new to say on it, is because they're pandering to the audience. I think that's the reason why there are YouTube channels with, subscriber counts in the six figures that do video after video after video attacking feminists, often attacking the same feminists repeatedly, again and again and again. It's to pander for views. It goes back to what I said in the answer to an earlier question. A lot of these people are effectively trolls. They're not providing any sort of useful, meaningful content. They're trolling. And they're trying to provoke reactions and provoke conflict, and they are pandering to an audience that they know desires this kind of content. But I don't think that means they don't really believe it. I think they believe it. I think that it is a reflection of their genuine feelings and their genuine opinions. But the repetition and the holding on to it and refusing to let go, I think, is a function of pandering to an audience and wanting the comments and wanting the views and wanting the subs that they know they will get because there is, unfortunately, an audience and an appetite for that kind of content. Personally, as I said a few months ago on Twitter and Facebook, I have never felt the need to pander to misogynists or to bigots of any kind to grow my YouTube audience. I've never done that. I never will, I never would, even if it somehow meant that I would be gifted with much, much better segues between this segment and
the lightning round. Rapid fire questions, glib and adequate answers.
Lucas Hackett, one angry brony. Hey Steve, I hear that Chicago, Cheap Trick, NWA, Deep Purple, and Steve Miller are finally getting inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year. Which out of these 5 inductees do you like the most and why? P.S. I'm absolutely pissed that Dan Fogelberg wasn't inducted this year. Go figure. Honestly, I am not super familiar with any of those artists. I know of them all. I have heard examples of music from all of them, but none of them have really reached out to me and grabbed me where I've thought, oh, good for them for getting into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I don't really feel a great deal of personal satisfaction for any of them getting in because I just really don't have a strong opinion on any of their music. Once Springsteen got in and Billy Joel got in, I was pretty much set. I don't really care at this point. Everybody I like is in anyway. Or is, not eligible yet. The Insane Pumpkin Carver, Bill Maher versus George Carlin. Carlin by a light year. Not even close. Bruce Bartup, Steve, say someone does something to spoil your life, and you say, okay, that's the end of Mr. Nice Guy. Then what? How far into your dark side do you go? Personal confession, not far, just for equality's sake. Probably not far. I would also say that. I don't think I probably don't have that dark of a dark side. And I'm kind of a coward. I mean, I don't think I would really get too violent or too vicious. I would probably just pout for a while and then get on with my life. Kevin Logan, will the robot uprising take place in 2016? Well, I guess that all depends on how nice people are to that robot secretary in Singapore. I mean, if people treat her nice and she gets along, then maybe we can put off the uprising for another year. But if people start giving her shit, her fucking with her, the other robots aren't going to like that. Matt Helmers, Steve, do you think accusations of racism levied against the WWE in regards to their choice of champions are fair? Do you think the fact that several non-black minorities, Rey Mysterio, the Samoans, etc., have won the belt absolves them of those charges? Also, who do you think would be a good black wrestler to receive a title run? My vote goes to Kofi Kingston. Well, yes, I do think accusations of racism against the WWE are justified. I think, and it's for more than just whoever they pick to be champion. Just in general, over the entire history of the company, I think there is a clear pattern of not pushing black wrestlers, particularly black wrestlers, but non-white wrestlers in general. They've gotten better at that in the last several years. They've made efforts to improve that, but over the course of their history, yeah, the accusations of racism are completely justified, I think. As for who would be a good black wrestler to receive a title run now, I love Kofi, but I don't think he's really world champion material. Big E could be if he were built the right way, but give Apollo Crews a few years. Apollo Crews, who is down in NXT right now. Give him about 5 years to develop a little bit and to get a little bit more experience under his belt, and I think Apollo Crews is almost definitely a future world champion. I would be very surprised if he did not at some point win the WWE title in his career. Matt Cassidy. Hey, Steve, I asked this question a while ago, so you may have already answered the question already, but why exactly is Sherlock Jr. your favorite movie? Well, I just think it's magic. That's actually what I say in a video I did about Sherlock Jr. If you go on my channel and look for a video I did about 4 years ago, 5 years ago actually, I think, now, wow, called The Brilliance of Buster #1, Sherlock Jr. That's a video that's all about Sherlock Jr. and why I think it's just the best movie ever. So check that out if you're interested in my opinion on Sherlock Jr. NH5316. Hi, Steve. What do you think of the Star Trek fan productions like Phase 2 and Continues? Thanks in advance. You're welcome. I like them both. I'm a fan of both New Voyages, a.k.a. Phase 2, and Star Trek Continues, but I have been really impressed with Star Trek Continues. That's the newest one, the more recent one. I think they've only done 4 episodes so far. But both in terms of its production value and the quality of its acting and its writing, I think Star Trek Continues is just really, really good. I am really impressed with that one, especially. But I'm a fan of them both. Kieran O'Sullivan, Star Trek question. How cool would it be if the Borg assimilated a changeling / founder? Would the Borg all be able to change shape? I think you just put your finger on a huge plot hole in Star Trek relative to the Borg. Why haven't the Borg ever tried to assimilate the founders? It seems like that is a biological and technological distinctiveness that the Borg would be dying to make their own, right? And it was established starting in First Contact that the Borg can assimilate using nanites. They just inject you with a little shot and it turns you into a Borg. They don't even have to manually, place the implants. It all just sort of grows inside you. And you'd think that would apply to a changeling. They can just put one of their little cables like into the Great Link on the changeling homeworld, right? And all of a sudden you have a bunch of Borg changelings. That's a fanfic. Somebody better write that. That's a fanfic. Nigel106, where did you get that cap? The one you are wearing in this video from, Steve? Well, this is a Hagerstown Suns cap. I don't remember exactly where I got this particular one, but a few years ago they were getting tougher and tougher to find. Now it's a little easier to find Hagerstown Suns caps. There was a drought for a few years where I think I ordered this one from a shop somewhere up in New York, actually. Weird that there would be like a sporting goods shop up in New York that would have Hagerstown Suns caps, but I wouldn't be able to find them anywhere closer. But I think I got this one up there, and I can't remember the name of the place. I'm really sorry. But yeah, now they're relatively easy to find. It's a minor league baseball Hagerstown Suns cap. No big deal. Well, that is it for the questions. Before I get out of here, though, I want to give a shout out to a very deserving YouTube channel, and boy, is the phrase deserving YouTube channel applicable this time. The shout out this week goes to Garrett. He is an incredibly well-informed person. One of my biggest problems with these people that I've mentioned a few times in questions earlier in this video who make videos about feminism, who are anti-feminists, is they don't actually know a fucking thing about feminism. They are completely uneducated and ignorant on the subject of feminism, of what feminism is, of what the history of feminism is, of what feminists think and say, of feminist theory. They complain about patriarchy, they complain about rape culture, they deny and belittle all of these principles and theories, and they don't even know what they are. They have no understanding of that which they are presuming to oppose. And Garrett is on the ball with all of that stuff. He is incredibly well-read and articulate and educated on the subject, and it shows when you watch his videos. He is really sharp and just an absolute gem. It's a really, really excellent YouTube channel. If you want a great example of someone who is an atheist and a socially conscious activist, a true progressive, a true advocate of social justice, Garrett is your man. He is just excellent, and I cannot recommend his channel and his videos highly enough. So please do yourself a favor, if you're not familiar with him already, and check out the YouTube channel of Garrett. I also want you to do yourselves another favor and check out the Lemme Listen podcasts. These are podcasts that are created from the brilliant mind of Jason Harding, the creator of Opinionville. He also is the host and creator-producer of the Lemme Listen podcast. There is Lemme Finish, which is the podcast that he does with Atticus Blake, a.k.a. Finite Atticus. That is just hysterical. There is American Monsters and How to Destroy Them, which is an improv comedy podcast with some supernatural overtones. I often say that it is like a cross between Coast to Coast AM and like Twin Peaks. It's just excellent. It's currently on hiatus as he prepares the second season, but you can go back and listen to the whole first season in its entirety. You can have yourself an American Monsters binge, and I highly recommend that you do because it's an awesome show. And there is, of course, Late Seating, which is the movie review podcast that Jason co-hosts with me. It's a show we do together. It's one of my favorite things that I do. Every 2 weeks we get together and we record a new Late Seating podcast, and we take a look at movies of note, famous movies, movies that are thought of as greats, movies that are thought of as bombs, but movies that you've probably heard of. Maybe you've seen them, maybe you haven't. We go back and we watch these movies again. We come at them fresh. We decide if we think they deserve the reputation, either good or bad, that they have acquired over the years. We summarize the plot and make fun of it a little bit, and then we say what we think. And it's a great show. And you can listen to the most recent episode, the brand new episode of Late Seating, today as this video goes up. The new episode of Late Seating will be up at some point today, and it is a review of the classic gladiator film starring Kirk Douglas and Laurence Olivier, Spartacus. So if you're dying to know what we think of Spartacus, that classic film directed by Stanley Kubrick, written by Dalton Trumbo, starring Kirk Douglas and Laurence Olivier, and Peter Ustinov, and just Charles Lawton, and just an incredible cast. Gene Simmons. If you want to know what we thought of Spartacus, you can check it out. You can check out all of the Lemme Listen podcasts, every episode of Late Seating, every episode of American Monsters, every episode of Lemme Finish. You can find them all at LemmeListenPodcasts.com. Go to that website, check them out. You will not be sorry, I promise. Well, that's it for me, everybody. I am out of here once again. Before I go, I want to remind you to please leave a comment on this video asking me your question for next time. You can ask me anything about anything. Nothing is too serious. Nothing is too silly. I will answer as many of your questions as I possibly can in the next video. So until the next video, take care, everybody. Hey folks, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like it, share it, subscribe to this channel if you're not subbed already, and also please consider helping me to make more videos like this one by supporting this channel through Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/Steve Shives to become a patron. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you next time.